The Eastburn family resided in Fayetteville, North Carolina, where they were part of a military community. Gary Eastburn held the well-respected rank of captain in the United States Air Force. He met his future wife, Catherine Katie Eastburn, in the 1970s, and they wed in 1975. The couple had 3 children together: daughters Cara, aged 5, Erin, aged 3, and Yana, who was 22 months old, respectively, at the time of the family's tragic demise in May 1985. In 1983, the Air Force stationed the family at Pope Air Force Base, where Gary served as the Chief of Air Traffic Control. By May 1985, Gary was attending a training program at a squadron officer school in Montgomery, Alabama, while his wife, Katie, and their 3 daughters stayed in Fayetteville. By 1985, the Eastburn family was preparing for a move to England, where Gary had secured a liaison position with the Royal Air Force. Due to travelling abroad and the lengthy period animals have to quarantine for before entering the UK, mainly due to the eradication of rabies across the country, the family thought it best to rehome their English setter, Dixie. Despite the difficult decision to rehome their dog, Katie placed an advertisement in the local Beeline Grab Bragg newspaper, looking for the right person to take care of her. On May the 7th, 1985, 27-year-old US Army Sergeant Timothy Hennis, who was based at Fort Bragg, responded to the ad and visited the Eastburn residence. After conversing with Katie, Hennis, whose family already had a Japanese Spitz, decided to adopt Dixie. On May 11th, 4 days later, Kate failed to answer her husband Gary's usual phone call at 8 a.m, which set off alarm bells. Nobody had seen or heard from Kate or her 3 daughters in approximately 4 days. And as a result, on May 12th, a concerned neighbour named Bob Seafelt, accompanied by a police officer, went to check on the family. As they entered the home cautiously, they were met with a grim and bloody scene. They found the lifeless bodies of Katie and her 2 eldest children, Cara and Erin, with baby Yana still in her crib. However, despite being severely dehydrated, she was alive. Katie had been stripped to the waist, sexually assaulted and stabbed approximately 15 times, with rape kits later confirming semen was present. Cara had multiple stab wounds to her chest, whilst Erin had been beaten in the chest and back. While police taped off the Eastburn residence in order to conduct their investigation and search for forensic evidence, they found fingerprints and hair throughout the residence which did not belong to the family, and while conducting a luminol test, it was established that whoever had committed this crime had made an effort to clean the blood off the walls of the master bedroom and throughout the house. Police tried to establish if neighbours saw or heard anything unusual in the days leading up to finding the bodies, and one witness came forward with some crucial information. A neighbour witnessed a man described as, quote, a tall white man wearing jeans, a knit cap and a members-only jacket, leaving the Eastburns' driveway with a trash bag in the wee hours of May 10th before the man drove away in a white Chevrolet Chevette. Due to this sighting, police established that the murder likely occurred between 8 p.m. on May 9th and 3 a.m. on May 10th. A composite sketch of the man was drawn up with the help of the NCSBI, and many saw a strong resemblance to Timothy Hennis, the man who had adopted the family's English setter. After a police lineup was arranged, the witness confirmed that the man he saw that night was indeed Hennis. Hennis had been watching a report about the murders on the news. He went to the police station on May 15th and was subsequently arrested and remanded in custody, whilst police tried to establish his movements, quickly concluding that his motive was sexual. When questioned regarding his movements around the Eastburn's home, he stated that he visited on May 7th, where he adopted Dixie and went home, and no further contact was established until May 9th during a phone call conversation with Katie, asking how the dog was settling into her new home. Hennis claimed he drove his wife and daughter to his in-laws that night before refueling his car and returning home. However, his girlfriend at the time contradicted his story and told authorities he had visited her out of the blue. Police also uncovered that Hennis's black members-only jacket had been taken to the dry cleaners on May 10th, and a neighbour of his saw him burning something in a barrel on his property in the early hours of May 11th. Despite these testimonies and various discrepancies, Hennis denied ever stepping into the Eastburn residence on the night in question. Timothy Hennis went on trial for the first time in the summer of 1986. Prior to the legal proceedings, Hennis was offered a plea bargain, 2 counts of second-degree murder with most likely 2 life terms. However, he turned down this offer. The main hypothesis put forward by authorities was that because Hennis's wife was out of town, having just had a child together, Hennis made a pass at Katie Eastburn, to which she rejected, following which the situation spiralled out of control and he killed her and her 2 eldest children. According to reports, Gary Eastburn told authorities that a number of items were absent from the home following the crime, including cash in an envelope, an ATM card, and the bank account password. After investigating with the help of the bank, police established that money had been withdrawn from the ATM account twice over 2 days, totaling approximately $300. This was highly significant, as Hennis was approximately $300 in rent arrears at the time, and somehow managed to pay it the following Monday. A witness also confirmed to authorities that she had seen a man matching Hennis's description at the ATM on May 11th during the second withdrawal of cash. These witness accounts were enough for police to firmly believe that Hennis was the man responsible for the Eastburn's murders, even though his blood, hair and saliva samples, as well as his fingerprints and palm print samples, had not yet been analysed to confirm it. Timothy's previous conviction of fraudulent checking added fuel to the fire of suspicion surrounding his guilt. During the trial, several graphic crime scene images were shown to the jury, purely for psychological effect. The brutality of the crime was beyond comprehension. After just 10 hours of deliberations, the jury found Timothy Hennis guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of first-degree rape. Following this, Hennis was sent to prison in Raleigh. Peculiarly, while Hennis was on death row, he received a mysterious anonymous letter which read, quote, "Dear Mr. Hennis, I did the crime. I murdered the Eastburns. Sorry you're doing the time. I'll be safely out of North Carolina when you read this. Thanks, Mr. X." The letter was not just sent to Hennis, but also to the sheriff's office. Despite looking into the letter, which was postmarked on July 8th, the day he was sentenced, police have never established the author of this strange letter and have been unable to determine whether there is any truth to the claims. In 1988, Hennis's conviction was appealed by his defence attorney, citing the graphic crime scene photos swayed the jury and their decision to convict him. This resulted in a judge demanding Hennis to have a retrial, the first to have ever occurred in North Carolina in regards to a prisoner who was already on death row. The retrial commenced in April of 1989. The defence challenged alleged inconsistencies in the witness statements made by Patrick Cohn and in the statement made by the woman who allegedly saw Hennis at the ATM. 2 new witnesses were presented by the defence, to which one attested to witnessing a long-haired man driving a light-coloured van on the morning of May 11th, and the other, a teenager, to seeing a man named John Rapoff jogging near the Eastburns' home on the night of the murder. It should be noted that John resembled Hennis and was witnessed wearing similar attire. Forensic evidence was also presented by the defence, including blood, hair and footprint samples which were not a match to Hennis or the Eastburns, and they presented his members-only jacket which did not have any bloodstains on it. DNA under Katie's fingernails also did not match anyone tied to the case. Hennis testified at the trial, and after it concluded, the jury acquitted him of all charges. Following this, he returned to normality and re-enlisted in the army before retiring in 2004 as a master sergeant. In 2006, the semen swab taken from Katie's body was tested using new and improved DNA technologies, and finally, the long-awaited break in the case finally came. The results of these tests concluded that the DNA matched that of Timothy Hennis. Due to his prior acquittal, concerns arose that Hennis could not be placed on trial for a third time. The Fifth Amendment's double jeopardy clause prevents retrials after acquittals, but the dual sovereignty doctrine allows state acquittals to be retried in federal court. The Uniform Code of Military Justice also allows military personnel tried in civilian courts to be court-martialed. At the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office request, Lieutenant General John R. Vines recalled retired Hennis to charge him with the Eastburn murders using this new DNA evidence. Hennis was recalled to military duty in September 2006 and returned to Fort Bragg in October. In August 2007, he was ordered to be court-martialed for 3 counts of premeditated murder. His appeals were denied at various courts in April 2008, June 2008, September 2008, and finally in March 2010 by the United States District Court for the Eastern District of North Carolina. Hennis's court-martial at Fort Bragg began on March 17, 2010, and lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution focused on DNA evidence with eyewitness accounts as support, whereas the defence argued that the footprints, blood and hair samples at the crime scene didn't match Hennis or the victims and suggested evidence contamination. The defence claimed Hennis had consensual sex with Katie before her murder to explain the DNA evidence. After 3 hours of deliberation, the jury unanimously found Timothy Hennis guilty on April 3, 2010. On April 15th, the jury recommended the death penalty for Hennis. He was demoted to Private E1, stripped of all pay and allowances, and dishonourably discharged. Numerous appeals over the years against his conviction for triple homicide and for dishonourable discharge from the armed forces have all been rejected. Hennis is currently incarcerated at the United States Disciplinary Barracks at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Even after the appeals process, he cannot be executed without presidential approval, which rarely occurs. The US military hasn't carried out an execution since 1961. Gary remarried an English nurse in 1991, and after working for the US Air Force for a number of years, he retired and settled down in Washington. As it stands, justice continues to await the Eastburn family. Gary and his daughter Yana, who moved to London in 1988, have awaited answers and the truth for almost 40 years. Though the culprit has been caught and sent to meet his fate on death row, exactly when his execution looms remains unclear.